Hello, everyone, and welcome to this project showcase from India Foundation for the Arts. Uh, India Foundation for the Arts, as many of you know, is an independent national philanthropy that supports artists, researchers, scholars, collectives across arts research, education, and practice. This year is a very special milestone for India Foundation for the Arts. We complete 30 years of grant and project implementation, having supported over 950 projects across a variety of outcomes that includes films, graphic work, workshops, performances, publications, podcasts, interactive websites, and much more, all of which now find a home in the IFA archive, which you can explore to learn more about the work that we do. From time to time, we organize events like this, both online and offline, to share the work of our project coordinators, to share their journeys, their learnings, their challenges, and the way they've navigated their various aspects of inquiries. And today we have a very special showcase that features a project that is exploring aspects in graphic work, exploring bringing together communities in Assam around illustrations and graphic work. So to tell you a little bit more about the arts practice program under which this project falls and the exploration category, I invite my colleague, John Xaviers, Program Officer for Arts Practice. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Menaka. So today we have Biswajit Das and Sarang Datta with us, who are comics artists from Guwahati. Their project was under the Explorations category of IFA's Arts Practice Program. Explorations category is for artists to play around with new ideas where the artistic process is more important than final outcomes. I'll briefly introduce our artists today. Biswajit Das is a documentary filmmaker and an animator based in Guwahati. He has directed 24 documentary films and more than 100 short animation films. Sarang Datta is a designer, painter, and an educator based in Assam. He graduated in fashion design from NIFT and he launched his label called Bamboo. He teaches design at Assam Downtown University. And their IFA exploration project was about artistic collaborations between young Assamese comics artists to make anthologies of one-page comics through workshops. Now I'll invite Biswajit Das to share more about it. Over to you, Biswajit.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Menaka. Thank you, everyone at IFA. And a warm welcome to everyone who have joined us today. My name is Biswajit Das. I live and work from Guwahati in Assam. And I am primarily a documentary filmmaker. And also, I would like to, sometimes dabble in comics as well. Growing up in the 80s and early 90s in a small town like Guwahati at that time, there were two things, which was an integral part of our childhood. One is Ruskin Bond and the other comics. So at that time, there were many comics that we were used to reading, especially in our school library. We had a lot of comics to read. We had Tinkle, we had Chacha Chaudhary, and later, we were introduced to comics like Raj Comics. All the superheroes that Indian comics produced, like Nagraj and Super Commando Dhruv. So these were the comics that we kind of grew up reading to. And later, when I went to college in Chennai, and later I went to filmmaking film school in Delhi. I wanted to get back to my love for comics, and at that time, when I started reading the earlier comics that was so kind of attractive, like Super Commando Dhruv, then I had grown up, so I couldn't find them attractive as so much at that time. But then, at that time, I was introduced suddenly to, Indian graphic novel artists like Sarnath Banerjee, Amruta Patil, Arijit Sen, and they had a collective for Pau Collective, and there was a lot of graphic novels and comics coming out, which me as a 20-year-old really connected with. So I started my career as a documentary filmmaker, and when I came back to Guwahati, I thought of taking this forward, uh, and then I started creating comics on my own. I kept meeting people who were like equally interested in comics in Guwahati, and slowly, the work took a more serious turn, along with my filmmaking career. So in 2024, when I applied to the arts practice exploration program, I, I got the project, and I got the project of working to create six short comic anthologies. So I have a PPT here which I would like to share. Just a second. Okay. So we created six comic anthologies in 6 months, and in 2024, 2025. And to create these comics, I invited some of my artist friends, and we got together once. Sorry. So over the period of next 6-7 months, we worked together, we got together, we discussed, we read comics, we discussed comics, we discussed other things, the stories that we wanted to tell as a comics artist. And so these discussions took shape, and many stories came out during our conversations. This is an image from the first meeting that we had together, and this is my dining table at my home. We used to have many conversations around this table later, and these were the participating artists during the first comics. Some of them couldn't continue, but most of us continued, and till the sixth, the last issue as well. So I'd like to first introduce the six artists that we were part of, the collective that who created the six comics work. Orkodip, Bulbul, Dikshita, Shibam, and Sarang. Sarang is here with me today, and he will also talk about his experience making these comics. Orkodip currently is studying doing his masters in film animation from SRFTI in Kolkata. Bulbul, Dikshita, and Shibam, they were former students of the Government Art College in Guwahati, and they are all practicing artists today. Sarang, as John have introduced, he is a fashion graduate and an artist who works in Guwahati. And all six of them, six of us, we are working together still. We are still working together in many projects, still making comics. We sometimes create animation also. So this has been a nice journey with these six artists as a collective. So there are four things that we were very we wanted to follow, why before creating the comics for the next 6 months. So reading, discussion, observation, and also experimentation. So I had a huge collection. I still have a huge collection of comics, graphic novels, manga, graphic stories, and other illustration-based books, picture books. So whenever we had a meeting, we would take out all these books, we would read these books, and all the five artists that work with me, they have their own style. of illustrating or telling a story. So it was really a good fun working with all of them. So once you have just go to the next slide. So while working, while we're reading the comics, most of us would immediately start, creating panels, thinking of a story, and so what we did, we got together once a month, and we would think of ideas, we would brainstorm ideas, and then everyone would go back home and start working on their comics. And then when we met again the next month, so everyone would come together and show whatever work they have done at home. And then we would give feedback to each other. We would talk about how it could be better or how differently we can tell the story. So these discussions were really crucial in shaping the work that we did in these 6 months. So after the first couple of meetings, we came up with the first issue. The first issue, the theme was food stories, but personal food stories. You know, so everyone went back home thinking about their own personal connection with food, any interesting story that they have to tell, coming from memory, coming from their personal experiences. So this particular one-page comic that you see here on the left side of this slide is done by Dikshita. Dikshita is an artist who have recently passed out from the Government Art College, and she really liked to read manga and see anime shows. So that influence really comes across in her one-page comic, which is called "Love is on a Plate." So this was one of the comics that became part of the first issue, and the first issue we titled it "What's on Your Plate." So I love food, like all of us. Most of us are foodies, and I love food. So, but when we are discussing on the table and we're thinking of what kind of stories we tell about food, I encouraged everyone to tell as many personal stories as they can. So what comes out of your own memory, so that will become more interesting. So these are uh, 5 panels, 5 pages from Saranga's work that he contributed to the first issue. And the work is titled Annadatta. At this point, I would like to invite Sarang to tell a little bit about how he created, when I told him to create a comic about food, what was on his mind and how the idea he converted into this particular 5-page comics. Sarang, if you can please.
Hello everyone. Greetings. So, for this one, I think I'm really thankful to Bisho because start my video 1 second. Yeah. So I'm really thankful to Bisho because he was little open for everyone to tell their stories in different way, and so we had the opportunity to explore also, and not in the comic format, the traditional comic format. And since I am not actually a guy from comic background, when I got associated with the team and Bisho, I always thought, ki, why not? Maybe I can bring my style and still tell a story in a comical or a graphic way. So this one, since it was food, of course I love food also, but the my exploration was how, as a practitioner of art, and how he brings food on his table, that economics of it, and and that feeling, like how much we need, how much is enough. So little bit philosophical I tried to portray. So on one bowl, it is a ramen bowl full with foods and thing, but another bowl, because we artists need lots of supplies. I think without that, even a table full of food is not enough. So that was the basic exploration ideas. So for this, I did a little bit in my style, and I hopefully people will accept it as a comic. Thank you, Mr. for this. Yeah.
Thank you, Saran. We go to the next slide. So now, before we go to the next slide, we met again, and we the next subject that we chose was our connection with the city of Guwahati, our home. And so, growing up in Guwahati, most of us were here who grew up in Guwahati. And so, what kind of stories would we like to tell through the next issue as a comic? So that is what we discussed a lot. Again, I put emphasis on personal stories, but again, experimentation. As I said, the four things that we were very concerned with: like reading, discussion, observation, and then experimentation. So I was open to experimentation as well. Whenever we're discussing that, we can do traditional style of comics, but we can also experiment a lot, which Sarang did with this particular comics as well, as you see with the subject of food. But going to the next issue, which we named Wild City Blues. Okay. So this was our second issue. We called it Wild City Blues. And the image that you see on your screen, this is the comic that Sarang created for this particular issue. And once again, Sarang, would you please tell us about these comics?
Yeah.
So I will tell you the first image, and the back of the first image is the second image, so that it's
Right.
folded in such a way that it becomes a 4-page comic in A5. Yes, Sarang.
Yeah, so this second issue was about how we visualize our city, Guwahati, how we are connected with stories, and so everybody has things like that. So after my 12th, I went to Bangalore. Then I was for a job. I was working with designers in Mumbai and Delhi. So at one point, I always thought, why not I can go back to Guwahati and still do my practice, So this one actually was a celebration of coming back, and 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 for the love of my city also. So I think if you can see three mangoes yellow, so that was actually I drew maybe in class one or so. I once in my art assignment or some very very young age. So three mangoes are there. Something like that I drew. So from childhood and few years, like 5 to 6 years, I was not in Guwahati. Then deciding to come back, and right now, I really believe Ki Guwahati is a promising city for designers, for artists, for any creatives. So this was a celebration of my city, Guwahati. So my Guwahati Dhai Dhai is just a text. Dhai Dhai means bang bang, like like New York City bang bang kind of thing. And 16 is I always use numerologies also sometimes in my painting. So 16 is my house number, and like that. And the down red and yellow thing is escape from my studio, which is like a blast. We can blast it here also. So that's a belief actually. So I tried that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarang, for sharing how you visualized your particular connection with Guwahati through this comic format.
One second.
Yes, it's sure.
Yeah. I forgot to say. This was done with fountain pen ink. Yeah. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for the same issue, Orkodip, he created this 4-page comics, and which he titled Mixed Feelings. So if you can read on your screen, it's nice, but if you can't, I'll just read it out. So here Orko has drawn himself, and as a conversation with his friend. So his friend have asked him, "You have been living in Guwahati for a while now, right?" Then he answers, "Yes, 11 years." So how is it like, living in here for a decade? Then he thinks, and then, so we go back to his, what he's thinking. And so he's drinking tea at a chai shop. He's watching the sunset on the river Brahmaputra. He's wading through flood water, and he's seeing, a lot of new constructions like flyovers happening. So then he says, I guess all I can say that I have mixed feelings about Guwahati. So it's a mix of both. But the way he constructed these 4-page comics, so when you read it, we see the first page, we see the conversation, then we see the second page, we see the third page. We keep waiting, what will he say at the end, and then we say that it's mixed feelings. The title, of course, gives it away, but I think it's a beautiful 4-page comic that he contributed for our second issue. Now for the third issue. The third issue is significant because we kept meeting in our home, in my home, or in Sarang's home, or at Bulbul's home, and we were discussing and creating these comics. But for the third issue, what happened was that at that time, there was a place in Guwahati called Digholi Pukuri, and suddenly one day we saw that all the trees near around the lake. It was a small pond, not lake, and it was marked for cutting because there was a flyover being constructed there. So overnight, people came to the streets protesting that these are very old trees and should not be cut. So as a part, the protest went on for more than 10 days. And as a part of the protest, we thought we should also do something about it. So one early morning, we went for a comics walk. So what we did, we were like 10 or 12 of us, and we walked around the entire pond area. We looked at the trees, we talked among ourselves, and then we sat there on the street and right there created on spot. All the comics that were contributed in this particular issue were created on spot, and they were all 1-page comics, except for Sarang's, which was a little longer, slightly longer. But everyone created comics on spot to create awareness mostly. And these comics we also then distributed in schools and colleges later, so that we could spread this particular message that we want to give through this particular issue. So this issue 3, the third issue, we call it Sa. Sa in Assamese stands for shadow. So the comic that you see here on your screen is done by Bulbul Das, and Bulbul created a 1-page comic and used a different panel structure to tell his story. And this is a collage of images from that particular morning. As you can see, we were sitting right there on the, if you can see the third image, we were sitting in the street. And a lot of people then joined us. We're also a part of the protest, and also local people and passerbys, people who had come for a walk in that particular area. And they joined us. We had a chat, and most of us drew comics. And that was how the third issue was created, very different from how the first 2 issues were created. Going forward, the 4th issue. Now, we are all fascinated with Coast. I am a big fan of horror films. And so when we sat together for the discussing the story of the next issue, so I suggested, can we do, something around Ghost? Now, Ghost can be a metaphor for any kind of fear that you have, personal fear, anxiety, or any personal and ghost stories that you had experienced. So that was what we had discussed. And that session was very interesting because everyone came up with some ghost story or the other. As sometimes they felt they had seen a ghost, but it was not a ghost. And I also told some ghost stories. I told some of my own experiences. So everyone shared their own experiences around their own personal ghost stories. This particular panel image that you see here on your screen, this is done by Dikshita. And interestingly, she had submitted two stories for this particular issue. This was the first one that she had submitted, and this story did not make it to the final issue. So I thought I will just show it here today. It's just one panel, one page from that. It was a 4-page story that she had created, and this is one of the pages. And so she was dealing with personal fear, personal anxiety, and through that, she through the medium of comics, she expressed what she was feeling at that time. So I'll go to the next one. Okay, so this next story for the host issue was done by Bulbul. It's called The Haunted Stairway. And so this is based on Bulbul's own personal experience. So throughout his childhood, Bulbul was scared of the stairs leading to his home. So that's what is written here. I'm just reading it out. Throughout my childhood, I was scared of the stairs leading to my home, especially at night. As I start climbing the stairs, I would hear strange sounds and see figures in the dark. Let's going to the next page. So this was the page 1 and page 2. So this page 3 and page 4. Page 5 and page 6. But suddenly I see a torch beaming from the top. I was never so happy and relieved on seeing a torchlight. As always, it was my mother coming to my rescue once again. So this is a true story that Bulbul had experienced, throughout his childhood. His mother was always there in the dark, knowing that her child is coming up the stairs at this time from tuition or, late night studies here. And, she was there with her torchlight ready. So even though it's not a horror ghost story, but it was something that he was always afraid of. And he decided to tell his story in the form of a comics. The next issue is around something that we are very fond of, going to the zoo. Zoo, we stopped going as an adult, but during our childhood, we used to frequently visit the Guwahati Zoo. Whenever there was a Sunday or a holiday, we would insist to go and look at the elephants and zebra, giraffe, tiger, bear. So this particular one-page comic that you see here, this was my contribution to the zoo comic issue, the issue number 5. And so all these are photographs that we had taken during my childhood visit to the zoo. And these photographs, then what I did, there's an app called Comica. I used that app to kind of add a filter, arrange it in the form of 5 panels, and tell the story of that particular day. So I went to the zoo for the first time in 1991. I was around 8 years old, and we took many pictures of the animals and birds. But the best picture was with my mother and my sister. The picture that you see on the bottom right. So that was my contribution to the zoo story. This is Orchodip's contribution to the zoo issue. It's titled Godot Came, and so it's a kind of philosophical also in a way. And Orko has grown up reading a lot of comics. He still reads a lot of comics online and the physical copies also. And he was uh, someone who in the 6 issues, the anthologies. His style of comics was the most traditional, as you can say. He used panels and speech boxes, speech balloons, and so this was his contribution to the zoo issue. So it was a two-page comic. The first page and the second page, I have arranged it here. Then we come to the last issue. The last issue is titled, "Can I Have a Fried Fish, Please?" The different thing that we did with the sixth issue was that I gave all the stories. I wrote all the stories, and the three of them, Bulbul, Dikshita, and Orko, they illustrated based on, but they not only illustrated, they also designed the panels, how the story would flow, what kind of structure it will have. So all the stories were written by me, and they designed and illustrated these stories. Saranga and Shubham couldn't be there till the sixth issue due to personal reasons. So the last issue had four of us, me, Dikshita, Bulbul, and Orko. So the panel that you see here is the one page from Bulbul's contribution to the issue. And the story was about a drying river. I have put only one page here for now. And it was about how a fisherman he couldn't catch fish anymore because the river was drying, and how his family suffered. So this was one of the panels for that. In this issue, what I really wanted to create in all the issues, but in this issue somehow we managed it. It was the only issue where we had a comics in Assamese, in our mother tongue, and so this was created by me. I wrote the story and I illustrated it. It's about a woman who loved fishing in the village, but during the Mag Bihu, the Bihu festival that happens in January in Assam, all the men go to the community pond to fish together, where somehow she couldn't be a part of. So it's a story about her and how she wished she could fish on that day as well. So this was the sixth issue about. It was mostly about ecology, about drying rivers, about lakes, about fishing, a mixed bag. So as I was saying before also, we tried to experiment a lot with all the issues. This particular image that you see is from Kaku, from Dikshita's, we call her Kaku, from Dikshita's contribution to the Wild City Blues, the city of Guwahati, with the issue around the city of Guwahati. So this is her contribution, one page from her contribution. The discussions that we had as a collective, we tried to tell as many personal stories as we can, tell stories that we see around us, and also while telling the story, experiment with the medium as well. Because what I feel is that with any art form, as a filmmaker also I practice a lot, is that if you don't experiment, the medium becomes stagnant and it doesn't move forward. So experimentation was very key in our discussions, and Saranga has done it, Dikshita has done it, Bulbul has done it in different ways. So that was one major thing that we had always discussed and implemented in all the 6 issues. And the way all the issues went through a lot of changes also. I mean, the first draft that they would come up with would be very different from the final product, and it would be rough, and how to tell the story, in what kind of panels they would use. So we would always get together in our meetings, our monthly meetings. That was what we discussed. And, we looked at comics, we read comics a lot to get ideas. And also, finally, when we created them, we tried to be as original as possible and, create our own style of creating these comics as well. So that was one of the main things that we did as a collective. And the next think that, the challenges that I would like to say. Later, Saranga will also tell us about the challenges that he faced. But the main challenge for me was to bring together and keep the energy consistent throughout the 6 months, because 6 months is a long time. Every participating artist had their own work, and in between these, their own schedule, they were also doing, creating comics with me. And so to keep the energy consistent throughout these 6 to 8 months uh, was very challenging. Uh, uh, some of them had personal problems and had to drop off, and so, at the end, we were only three of us, four of us who, stayed till the last, the end of the project. So that was one thing. Second thing was, uh, for most of the artists, this was the first time they were creating comics in a regular pattern. So they were not used to creating comics so much. So every month coming up with a story, uh, and to tell that story, and then to draw it, or to think of how to do it, how to experiment with the medium. So there was a lot of things that were going on at that time. And so every artist had their own challenge, and every artist faced their own challenges. And they would come and we would discuss those challenges as well. And we would see how do we come, uh, how would we overcome those challenges. So sometimes we were not able to, overcome those challenges. Sometimes we had to, just do what the best we can do. They were not happy with some of the comics they created, because at the end of the day, there was no time and we had to go to the next issue. And so time was one of the most important factor, but discipline is something that we all try to stick to. And, so I think that is the reason that we came up with 6 issues in 6 months, which I think was something that was really remarkable, especially as practicing artists. So these were some of the challenges that we faced. Uh, I've written here future plan, but the images that I'm sharing here, uh, this is how it all began. We, along with 14, 15 of young artists, we did a workshop together for 1.5 months, and at the end of the workshop, these 14 artists, they created more than 70 comics, small comics, different size, different subjects. And this was way back in 2022. And these comics, then they took to Indie Comic Fest in Delhi, and they sold most of these comics. And so they did a good sale, and that really gave them the energy. So this was before they went to Delhi. We organized what we call the uh, open library of comics. So Gothon Art Collective, this is Gothon Studio, where we organized the open library of comics and graphic novels. So most of the things that you see on the table is from my own collection, but others also, contributed. They brought their own comics from home, and for 2 days, everyone could come, sit, read comics, discuss. So there are a lot of people that came in those 2 days, and we talked a lot about comics. And so this was the beginning of, the so-called indie comic movement that started in Guwahati after that workshop. So on the image on the left, that image, it was a table of comics that the students had, the young artists had created, and they had put them on for sale as well on that particular day in the open library session, 2 days. And they sold some of the comics. Many people had come, so they bought these small comics, and they would sell. They put a very fair price in, like 30 rupees, 40 rupees, 50 rupees, and so for the first time they had created comics and they were selling comics. This was before they went to Delhi. And this is where it started, and then that's how the journey started, and we're still continuing. So I would end my presentation here.
Thank you, Vishnu, for sharing very endearing artistic process. You were taking us through the techniques and the kind of collaborations that you had with the team. Um, so I'd like to start with your transition from as a filmmaker to a comics maker, or a concurrent journeys of being a comics maker and a filmmaker. So both are sequential art in a way, and filmmakers also work on their storyboards, which is like comics as for time. So, would you like to reflect on that?
Sure, sure. Thank you, John. During my film school days, we had to create, both fiction and non-fiction projects. And my final diploma was a mix of both fiction and non-fiction. It was a hybrid film. And for the fiction part, that was the first time I created a storyboard. So after reading comics for over 2-3 decades, when that was the first time I actually created something. That storyboard was so-called the first comics, that I created. So that I would say that would be the beginning of this collaboration. And also what happened was that I was making a film at the same time on the graphic artist, this comic artist
Okay.
in Delhi in
Uh,
Delhi. So I had gone and I met my friend Manas was there. So I had shot a bit with Manas, then Lokesh and Shefali, from Delhi. So I shot with them. So they had organized an Indie Comic Fest in Delhi. So I shot there also. So other Bhagwati Prasad, the artist. So he was also working with comics, and so I shot with him as well. So I was in the process of making a documentary film on these comic artists. So and then I thought when I came back to Guwahati and I still making films at the same time, the way I made all these artists, young artists, was through a film screening that they had organized in their studio in Goffan studio. So that's where I met them, and then they showed me their work. After the screening, they were showing me their work, and so I was looking at the work, and I told them, "Ki, would you like to create comic? Your artwork is so good. Would you like to work on comics?" And they said, "Ki, yeah, we have never done it, but why not? It sounds like fun." And that's where it all started. So it's kind of a parallel journey. Uh, and I also started, and I am not a very, I'm not a trained artist, and I'm a trained artist in the sense on with film, but as a visual artist, I was not very good at drawing at that time. So then I also kind of started creating on my own, and slowly this became a kind of movement.
it's wonderful to hear how two mediums are resonating with each other. Uh, so, would you like to share about the editorial process as in the comics anthology? In the sense, when you hear a story or when you see a thumbnail, set of thumbnails, uh, or when you read the script, how was that experience? Each artist would have their own way of working. So, how was that experience like with each artist?
Um, as much as I could, I did not interfere very much in the process. Uh, so the first thing that I would do is talk about the subject for that particular issue. So once we have decided, oh, yeah, this is a good subject, yeah, we can do, then they would tell their stories, and so there are many stories that they would tell. So then I would say, oh, this sounds like an interesting story. Why don't you work on this? Things like that. And so then they would say, yeah, okay, good. So then they would go back, work on that story, come back. Sometimes I would help with text because
Hmm.
they, they would sometimes feel difficulty writing the text. So at the same time, Sarang, he was experimenting a lot, and he would show me his panels, which was not exactly in the traditional comic style. Yet, I would look at them and then I decided, okay, let it go. We have to do this experiment. So as an editor, so these are the decisions that I took, so that everyone would still have their own voice, own style of art, and to help them tell their stories in a certain way, I would just give some inputs here and there and bring them all together finally in the end.
And also curious about the choice of the black and white for most of the anthologies. So is it because you had printing in mind, which is non-digital kind of printing, maybe offset larger print runs? Did you have that in mind? Why did you, in a way, uh, had a constraint of black and white for the artist, or was it a guideline, or is it something that artists arrived at?
Actually, it was not a guideline, but this was something that they felt comfortable doing it. But Saranga did work with color,
Mm.
but the others did not experiment with color as much. I think they were more comfortable because it was also the first time that they were creating comics. Color would take, they have to spend one more day for color. So they will be faster to do black and white, with ink and
Uh,
so time again, as I said, time was a constraint, a challenge continuously. But somehow we managed. But also printing the comics later, the cost of printing also affected because digital printing is expensive. And we had six comics to print, almost 70, 80 issues per comic. So it was a lot actually. So black and white kind of helped us maintain the budget.
Uh, as you're talking about the print runs, 70 copies each and all, there's a question from a PhD candidate who is working on comics from the Northeast, Bhavika Sachan, who's doing PhD on comics from the Northeast. She's asking, I'm actually curious about how I can read the entire work and if I can access this recording for my research work. I am a doctoral researcher in the UK working on Northeast geographic narratives as cultural archives of feelings and histories alike. And this work is closely related to what I am trying to do, experimentation and new ways of expression and representation from the region. Also, I'd like to request an interview with Biswajit and Sarang if possible for my thesis. So as for seeing this Project Showcase, there will be a recording of it on IFA's YouTube channel subsequently. And Bishu, you can respond regarding how can she get access to the print copies and regarding the interview.
Okay, I mean, definitely I can help. Maybe I can share my email ID or somehow we can, email would be the best way to get in touch. So if I can put my email ID here on chat, is that
Uh,
okay?
I have already shared your email ID with her.
Okay. So that would be the best way to contact and we can take it from there.
Uh-huh. Another question from an anonymous attendee. How does the comics and graphic narratives culture look like in Assam? What kind of works are emerging and what is the most focused theme from this book?
What is the most last?
Focused theme. What is the most recurrent theme?
Um, Comics as a medium, there are not many artists who are working on that medium in Assam as of now. But two graphic novels which came out. One was by Parismita Singh and one was by Sisir Pasupatari. And those two are prominent. But there are other comics work artists, very few of them who are working in this medium. But as I said, there is not much that is happening right now. So that's why I think uh, all these young artists who have come together as they keep creating, keep distributing independently their comics. I think slowly and slowly we will have a huge body of work which will, represent Assamese comic. Uh, scene, as you can, if you want to say it like that.
Okay, we have a lot of questions from the audience.
Okay,
So we'll take them up one by one.
sure.
One anonymous attendee is asking, do you think comics work with a decolonial mentality within the Northeast in general and Assam in particular to give back to the Assamese communities an understanding of their own knowledge systems against the nation state imaginary? And do you think your comics anthology work here and your life as a visual storyteller in general commits to this decolonial intention and achieves it?
Uh, as I said, it's, I think, still we are in a very nascent stage to, say in broad about what comics are exploring subjects in Assam or in the Northeast. Uh, uh, there, so I don't know how to react to this immediately. But maybe Sarang, if you can also say something to this, what do you think?
Yeah. I think I agree because it's this movement or the practice is not very long ago. It has started very, in the recent years. So of course we have so many stories and so many subjects also like Assam and other different states of Northeast. So everybody has different traditions and cultural stories and all. A little bit different from maybe mainstream India, and that's make it interesting also maybe. So I think we are not intentionally thinking about subjects that can differentiate us, but we're trying to be honest and around the vicinity, the concerns, socio educational, or we are, I think, more of concerned about this right now. I think we are not yet uh, very hard on the subject. So I think, what do you say, Visa? Yeah.
No, I think so. And I think we have to keep creating all the comic artists that are working right now in Assam. Uh, so we have to tackle as many, themes and subjects as we can, So only working on this medium as much as we can only will take it forward, in this particular scene. So that's what I feel. Yeah. And people are doing it. There is one fantastic magazine for children called Hatipoti, which has completed a year recently, which has a lot of comics in featured in that magazine. And I think when it reaches to all age groups, and also comics is something that we always felt is suitable for children. So we all, when whoever is creating has always thought about creating comics for children or young adults. But I think there is a huge audience who would like to read comics or graphic novels with adult based themes, subjects, and especially us who are in we're in our 40s right now. We are still reading comics and different from what children read.
Right. John, I'll come in also to help you with a lot of
Thank you,
questions.
thank you.
There are a lot of questions in that attendees have shared. Also, there are some from Facebook which we'll take.
Okay.
But just because you spoke about the audience and the interest in making these works, one anonymous attendee is also asking about the you've kind of hinted at it, but what is the publishing industry for comics and graphic novels like in Assam? Because you all are doing a self-publishing kind of work and you have gathered together a collective, but what is the other space, the wider space that exists?
Yes, yes. So I'll tell. So briefly, I'll say about that because there is something that I noticed this year in December, January, the book fair that happens in Assam. So I went there and for the first time, I saw a lot of comics in Assamese and English published by a major publishing house in Guwahati. And so I was really surprised, and I brought all those, both in English and in Assamese. And it was aimed at children, but those were I really liked reading them as well. So I think publishing houses in Assam are looking at this medium Also because I came to know that there are a lot of comics being sold. These new comics that I have seen this year, there are a lot of comics that were sold this year. So I am sure if we can go and pitch it to them, they will be interested to bring them out, like like the other novels and books that we see.
And Bhavika's asking a related question, so I'll ask that now. If there are recommendations for Assamese graphic narratives works that they can go and look at, where and how can they find that? I know you spoke about two key works,
Yes.
but if there are others that they might explore.
Both these works that I spoke about were written in English. But there are stories of Assam. One is The Real Mr. Borkotoki by Shishir Basumatari, and the other is The Hotel at the End of the World by Parismita Singh. Not Assamese, but they were from one of the early work that came out from this part of the country. So these two books, please go and is available on Amazon, internet, Flipkart, everywhere. And other than that, you have to come and go to the local bookstores and ask for the recent comics that have come out that I saw in the book fair in Guwahati this year. So
And
that is another thing. Yes.
And on another note, just to add that for Bhavika, there's another IFA project that we are supporting, which is under productions to Pankaj Saikia, who's creating, taking a folk story and creating a graphic work in Assamese for children. We'll put the link in the chat box in a bit, and you can just explore that project. So there is some work that's beginning to happen, and he's doing it through engaging with workshops as well with children to create that work. Just to add that, John, if you'd like to take.
Yeah, so we have questions from Facebook as well. We have questions from Facebook. There is Nobiko who's asking. We have seen that these are one-page comics. How challenging is to convey all the thoughts within a page? How is it different from creating a 6-7 pages comic? What other things should we consider while creating one-page comics as well as panel-less comics in one page? And Nobiko is also curious to know if in this 3 issues there are only illustrated wordless comics. Question mark. If yes, please share your thoughts on this. How was it different from word illustration?
The one page comic, actually not all were one page comics in the 6 and anthologies. There were many, like I shared some, like Sarang's first work I shared, it was a 5-page comic, and then Orko's 4-page comic, then Bulbul 6-page comic. So there were more than one-page comics, but definitely one-page comic is more challenging to, but that key, the trick is to think the story should be shorter, smaller, so that you can tell the story in, let's say, 5 panels, 6 panels, or which can fit in one page. So that is one thing. But Sarang, I think, will be able to say, because while working on one page comics initially, what was his challenge as well.
Yeah. Right. So I think it's not about the panels or the volume or the space. Actually, any story can be put up in a one-page comics also, or it can be spread along different panels also. It's technically, I don't think it's much of an issue for us. Of course, for one-page comic, the story has to be short and crisp. So every panel has to be designed methodically, but if it is longer, we can play around with more panels and things like that. So I think it's not much of a bigger challenge. It's how we do the storytelling and what's the requirement for the comics. So one page or is not about easy or something like that. So I think it's which story requires how much volume or space or panels. I think so. The story demands so the story decides how many panels, and so it's like that. I think so. It's more of a design thing, how you tell the story. Thank you.
Thanks. And speaking about the form, one anonymous attendee is asking about language barriers if you faced any during the creative or the anthology, and also the choice, because English specifically and not Assamese completely. So if you have comments on that and why maybe the the positionality of the six people and or the various artists who came together and how that played out. So if you could share some of that.
Sure, sure. The English, the language English was finally chosen so that it could reach an audience beyond Assam. But as the stories were from Assam, we thought that these stories need to go, to the entire world if possible. So that is the one of the main reasons that we chose English. But every time we meet, I always insist that we have to create comics in Assamese. Otherwise, this may not go very, So we have to create comics for, in our language as well. It is very important to do that. So that is always in my mind. That is always in. So and uh, uh, so we have to create, and not only for children. It's not like that. Another thing that I want to do, I remember there was this magazine in Assamese from Assam. It's a very popular magazine. And in that magazine, I saw one comics which was episode wise featuring in that magazine for over 4 or 5 months. And that was the only time I saw a literature magazine carrying comics in Assamese for adults. I had that issue, but somehow I lost it. I'm very, now I'm very sad about it. But so these magazines, if they can carry this kind of work and it reaches to, the readers, so I think then definitely we would like to, work more in that. So that is how I think it will move forward. And the position, you asked Meneka about the
Yeah, there was a
artist.
question that was related to about the positionality and the background of the various artists and how that influenced their work. So an anonymous attendee was also curious about that.
A background, besides Sarang and me, all were students at the time when they were working on these comics, and or were pass outs, recent pass outs. And they were all art students. So that helped them. So they didn't have any problem with illustrating, or so that part they were really fluent with. But the only challenge they faced was telling the story in this medium. How to choose panels or no panels or 1 page, 6 page, 4 page, so those things that and background, again, where they came from is kind of, I would say, visible in their stories. Yes, sorry.
Also, a question regarding colors.
I think Sarah
Sarang,
wanted
what
to
did
add something.
yes.
Sorry.
So
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
I would just try to add here, like one of our mate Bulbul and Dikshita. Since they are from the graphic department of fine arts, so they are very good with woodcut and lino and all. So I think they have also explored with the woodcut, or even though it's a very time taking process and all, but I think we welcome that also. And me from a different background, fashion or a little bit of illustration, with that knowledge, and I'm mostly painting, I think things evolve. Once you, it's a language how you speak the story. And for Bisa also, since he's a filmmaker, so he has his own personal language. So together it's very interesting. That's all. Yeah.
Sarah, you may want to take this question. An anonymous attendee is asking, do you think the colors are dying as a part of comics culture?
Colors are dying as a part of, sorry.
Comics culture.
Oh no, I think uh, see, the last time someone asked me, I think you raised the question, ki, why black and white or something. So I think black and white as a graphically, it's a very strong. It's so it depends. Some stories, if it is very black and white, and so it's very strong. It's nothing about color, choosing white color and black and white. But I think colors and black and white can go hand in hand. But I always agree agree if it is one piece of comic, uh, it should not be mixed much. So if it is black and white, so all the stories, all the comics inside should be black and white. So I think black and white is very powerful, very direct. So I think it's not only the aesthetic part; it has power. But color also takes time, obviously. But some stories are more receptible with colors. So so it's their own choice. I think no one is competing the color and black and white. I don't think it's a competition. It's go hand in hand, I guess.
There is a comment that says it's interesting that comics are accessible ways that go beyond literacy to talk about things because you don't really need to know how to write for it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yes, one thing was about the wordless comics also, So wordless comics is another, format, which is also very interesting, We have seen, popular books, graphic novels, which doesn't have any word, so in India especially. And Apupen has done one, uh, all these books, so there was no dialogue, nothing, it was only images, one whole book. So it is a fantastic format medium, to tell a story. Yeah.
And we have the last question from the audience. An anonymous attendee is asking, are Assamese comics justifiable collections of embodied traditions and oral stories? Do you think that this form does justice to collecting indigenous or communal knowledges and experience?
I am sure it will do justice when it, addresses these subjects. Right now, I'm not sure how much comics are exploring indigenous traditions, oral stories. But if we do it, I think it will surely justify comics as a medium to tell these stories, and it will be fantastic to explore. Yeah.
Related to that, I'm curious. There's a lot of interest in exploring the folk and fairy tales and mythology in comics in Assam. Is there any kind of art historical reason or a larger history, cultural history in film? Are there references to myth and folklore in film history? And can you see resonances between film history, cultural history, and comics?
Uh, we have a rich history of folk stories, folk art, folk stories. And there is this book that we all grew up reading. It's called Budhiyar Khadu. It's like Tales from Grandmother. So these are all oral stories that were collected over a time, and then, as an anthology it came out. So a few years ago, Budhiyar Khadu was also created as a comics, and it
Oh,
came out. Yes, yes, it came out in the year, uh, but it was like a kind of, it was nice. It was, but that those particular stories are really dark. Even though as children we read it, but Buriyar Khadu was a collection of dark stories. The hands were cut, and someone was killed, and so all these things are. There's a fantastic film also at Assamese, Kothanti, and it won many awards. It was based on 3-4 stories from this particular, and it was so he tried to do justice to that dark themes that these stories had. So I hope if we can do a comics which is more true to the dark themes of that particular so-called children's stories, then I think it will be really fantastic. So yes, John, to answer your question.
Babika is saying, I tried to access the grandmother's tales, but I couldn't access it at all. No works available anymore. Anyway, I can access it.
Uh, uh, I will try to search it online. I'm not sure, but these are books that you get it during the book fair and also in local bookstores.
Uh,
Online, I'm not sure if they're available. Yeah, I have to see. Not sure yet. But this is a book that is there in every household in Assam. Buriya Khadu, this
so,
there in every house. Yeah.
So if there are no more questions, then maybe we can conclude. Uh, so please join me in thanking Biswajit Das and Sarang Gopal for a very lovely presentation of their artistic process and the kind of journey that they have in terms of collaboration. Uh, and please follow IFA on social media. Um, and we thank all the attendees, everyone who asked questions. So over to you, Menaka.
No, just joining John and thanking you both, Biswajit, Sarang, and I know that the other participants are in the attendees. I can see them. So thank you for being part of the process, and it's been lovely to see your work and understand how it has unfolded. And also thank you to the audience. You all have been extremely engaging, very curious about the work that's happening, and I've asked a lot of different questions throughout the evening. So thank you for that. I just wanted to share with audiences listening in here and on Facebook that many requests for proposals are open at India Foundation for the Arts. So to invite artists, cultural practitioners, researchers, music historians to explore them. We have proposals open for artists to working with arts education in Karnataka. We have an archives and museums collaboration with the Dr. Ranade Music Archive in Pune. The call for proposals for arts research is also open, as well for arts practice production. So yes, so please explore them. My colleague has left the link in the chat box. You can visit our IFA website, follow us on Instagram to follow all activities and events. And finally, to invite all of you, if you are in Bangalore, to come to the IFA Archive Week, which is from June 8th to June 12th, where we will be opening up the IFA Archive for your visits, curating a very special set of projects that you can engage with and see the outcomes of all the projects that have happened in the last 30 years that engage with community memory, justice, and movement. So do drop by the IFA office. And once again, thank you all. Thank you to our speakers, and also thank you to the audience. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you,
so much.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.